Hello and welcome to our listeners and viewers. This is Radio Entrepreneurs. I am your host today, Phil Sharkey. I'm the president of my company, The Higher Authority, and I have a great pleasure to speak with one of our recurring guests today, Marc Z. He's the president of Marc Z Legal Staffing for our Marc Z Moment, our legal moment here. Marc, good to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Phil. Great to be on the show.
Outstanding. So, I enjoy our conversations. I find a lot in common with you and your information very on point. So tell me, Marc, what do you have for us today? What would you like to discuss?
Well, Phil, I thought we would discuss background checks. And that's something near and dear to your heart because that's what your company focuses on for special areas.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Marc, as you know, obviously very interested as I have about 30 years in this industry. So I'm interested in your perspective and especially from the legal side and the placements, et cetera. So tell me, Marc, what have you seen out there in that area?
So we're finding sort of two ends. One is firms will be happy on a couple fronts in terms of attorneys' practices, where they, especially maybe the smaller firms and the boutique firms, where you're having a understanding of bar qualifications for attorneys and a criminal background check. But what we're finding is more and more firms are using more extensive background checks, and it used to be. It might have been on the attorney end, and then it might have been on maybe mid-level managers. But now it's really being used at all levels of the employment ladder, so to speak, and firms are really using it as a guide. Now, you have certain laws that protect individuals when they're taking on the background check, where that information can be explained if there are questions on it. But it's interesting in certain areas that some firms will check some information where a lot of firms will check other information, such as education, such as, going back to maybe certain employment experiences that some other employers would not have. And I'm just curious in terms of, in your experience, I know your company does a lot of background checks. Is it like a menu when you're doing the background checks? Because we're finding sort of on all different ends that different firms, different companies are using different types of background checks to determine whether or not a candidate would be qualified, not only in terms of their experience that's on their resume, but just in terms of their profile and in terms of what background they've had to date.
It's so true, Marc, and it's always interested me in my long career here with the perspective of the different employers. As you know, we screen for all industries, including in the legal industry. And it is interesting, as you mentioned, the difference of opinion. Some will be suffice with just a criminal check and a very basic background check. So we have what we call a menu option where you can pick and choose a la carte what you want to check on a person. All the way up, we have other firms and other employers want to do a full background check, which can include almost everything we do for one set fee. It's a higher cost than just a menu option, but that's also where we see that response of results about 30% turnout fraudulent, which I always tell people when we talk about background screening, it's a gigantic number. And these are people that a signed release has already been obtained. They realize they have to have a background check. And we still see 30% turnout fraudulent. And in fact, that just happened yesterday. And everybody's well aware of the Karen Reed case here in Massachusetts, a very high profile case. I'm sure you're quite aware of it. And the forensic expert yesterday for the prosecution, who was the digital expert regarding where the car was, how the car moved, the timing. They mentioned right in court yesterday that he did not have the degree that he claimed for his company on his LinkedIn and his website. And again, the great embarrassment and the loss of branding that can result is tremendous. And here we have a legal proceeding going on, and they went right to that statement where this person does not have the credentials they claim they have. So as you know, in our conversations, I very strongly believe in the background check, but it is interesting to see how the employers vary from some want just a minimal check, sort of a check mark. I think they're just doing it, to some really want to find out what they're getting before they walk in the door today.
Right. I think it's being used in some firms as a tool in addition to their other toolbox items, while others are feeling that we're going to have this full background check for everybody in the company. And it's definitely affecting hiring because today A lot of employers are not committing to reference checks, and they feel that reference checks are not what they used to be because of liability issues. So then firms are going to background checks and looking at background checks as a tool that's really, really important when they're trying to make final decisions in terms of supplementing what decisions are already made.
It's so true, Mark. And what I see when they bring on a company like ourselves, a third party, where you may know that the employer has a relationship with the prospective applicant, and something occurs, if there's a falsification like a degree or a criminal record, where they can then refer the person to us and say, we're still in a good place, Mark. We still want to bring you on board, but we have a problem now. And this third agency came up with the fact that you don't have the degree you claimed you have. If they have any anger or uneasiness, it's more with my company than it is with their actual employer, where you still maintain that relationship. Like, hey, we still want to employ you. And especially Mark, in your field, it's such a referral field where people know each other and there's someone that they want to bring on board. So they feel very hesitant to encroach upon them and cause any hardship or difficulties. And that's where bringing on the third party agency really benefits them, where they're saying, hey, the report is as it is, and it's not us, attacking your character or your references. It's this
Right,
third party agency right here.
right, right. I would It's a very good tool. It just has to be used the right way under the right circumstances when you're looking at a hire, and then go through the proper procedures that if something comes up, being able to give the candidate a chance to explain what circumstances led to this particular situation that's coming up on their background check. And I think that if it's used the right way, it could be very positive for both the employer and the employee who feels that the process is fair and they're competitive, because it used to be in a lot of circumstances with background checks, a lot of people had difficulty getting positions because the background check looked into certain situations, like, for example, arrests that might have been dismissed, but were still showing up on a background check. And, so I think that's the balance that employers and prospective candidates need to have.
You're so right on point, Mark, where I have a lot of conversations where to me the background check is information, and information gives you the power to make the best decision possible. And also for the applicant, I've had many applicants call me up and not know something on their background report. Mark, I should never know something about you or an applicant that they don't already know about themselves. And many times they'll come back with, like, for example, we do driving record checks on most applicants. The reason why 10% come back without a license and they're driving to work every day. And I've had clients come back to me or applicants say, I didn't even know. Or as you referenced, like a court case which should be expunged. And I tell them, I'm not a magic man. If I reported it, it's there and it's not expunged. You need to find a proper processes as to what happened. So for an individual as well, Mark, they can really gain a lot of information regarding what's going to surface on them and what they should know.
Right. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's very important, transparency, and that way it's effective. And a person who's under consideration for a role feels that they were respectful to what the employer standards were. At the same time, they feel that they had their fair sort of hearing, so to speak, in terms of their background and skill set.
Absolutely. And we always preach like yourself, Mark, consistency, and don't do something more on a person. Like, you sort of do what you're going to do per a hiring category, and you don't do more or less based on any other factors. And that way you're well protected, and you're just basically trying to, protect your branding, protect your law firm, and protect your image, and make sure the person isn't, unfortunately, some of the people we see out there today are quite fraudulent or dangerous.
Right. I agree. I agree.
Well, Mark, as you know, always, I appreciate our conversation, especially in this field, because you know how much I do enjoy the background screening services. So I want to remind everyone, we've been speaking with Mark Z of Mark Z Legal Staffing. Mark, as always, how would someone get in touch with you or other entrepreneurs out there if they wanted to reach you?
Sure. Well, first of all, they'll go on our wonderful Radio Entrepreneurs website, radioentrepreneurs.com. Mark Z Legal, MarczLegal.com. Google Mark Z, MARC, the letter Z, and 617-338-1300.
That sounds great, Mark. Thanks so much. I look forward to our future conversations, and we'll be right back with more stories on Radio Entrepreneurs.